So welcome back to the Family Business.
Welcome back to the Family Business Show. It's good to be here with Mike, and we're going to talk about fraud. Is it happening in your family business or in your business in general? I'm surprised at how many businesses are affected by fraud, and in most cases, fraud is happening and you don't even know.
It was really incredible, John, when we were talking about this before we came on the show, and you said, Michael, do you know how much fraud's going on? And I went, probably a couple of cases a year go through. I suppose some don't get reported, but probably a couple get reported a year. But you gave me a very startling fact up front.
I was surprised. A couple of days ago I was talking with a professional, and it was told to me that over 130,000 cases a year of fraud are being reported. So if that's being reported, how many are not being reported, and in what respect is fraud happening in your business?
It is scary when you think about that, because you think, oh, family business, that'll be nice and secure. But it's not just family members that work in the business. You've got other people that work in, and maybe not family members, they've got shares in it, or you've given them these employee incentives that come along. But there's so many different instances. Can you share a couple up front that might just startle a couple of people?
An employee in the business uses the company credit card, and they use it for personal use. And then they might apologise, oh look, I really didn't mean to use it for personal use, because they've been caught. So that is actually fraud. Somebody's actually taking personal gain from something that's not in an employment contract. And if they weren't found out, they could probably take advantage of that.
Do you find that the fraud is, because of technologies, is it becoming more difficult for them to commit, or is it becoming more difficult to detect?
Personally, I think it's a bit harder to detect, but I think when fraud occurs, it's really taking advantage of a system or a process that exists in the business. And it can happen differently for different people. When people are put in a place of trust, in that position of trust, most people, especially in family businesses, we treat them as family, employees as family. So we don't expect that people will take advantage of these things.
Now, you were at a conference a couple of days ago, and is it KPMG? That's a big accounting firm in...
KPMG are national sponsors of Family Business Australia.
And these guys are right across the board. They're a great company. But they were giving some examples, and obviously some we can't talk about because you just can't talk about. But you know yourself about one, a bookkeeper, $20 million later, the company is being gone. There's probably
an East Coast electrical white goods firm. This is going back quite a few years now, but a lady who looked after the accounts for this organisation over a long period of time took about $20 million out of the business, and the business eventually collapsed.
Yeah.
But $20 million is a lot of money.
It certainly is. You know, and we hear cases where people have got into, well, I'm probably going back a couple of years now, into when they had the manual invoicing books and the receipt books, but now they've got their mobile phones and they're taking stuff on their mobiles and doing cashes on the weekend and taking the business that should have gone to the business out of their pockets, and it's causing real financial hardships. And maybe somebody's watching now going, I wonder why our sales are decreasing.
That's true. From personal experience many years ago, when we used to have invoice books and purchase order books, and documentation was a little bit loose, and even though those purchase orders were numbered, somebody goes to the cupboard and says, oh, where's that next order book? Where's the next one in succession? And the book was missing. So from personal experience, we've had employees who thought they could feather their nest in time gone by. There are other businesses that I know of that have had experience where a trusted employee who has worked in the business for many years had a gambling problem and started to do some work on weekends unbeknownst to the owners of the business, and would
It's-
do cash jobs, take them from the business. So he's dishonestly making gain,
Yeah.
and the business is losing the business that they would have. The reason in this particular case is that a client rang up and said, "So when are you finishing the job?" So there are ways of people finding out. You can't always cover it up.
No.
I'm aware of another case, which is a large retail organisation where points are used, and a salesperson comes to the counter and looks at the computer and says, "Oh, so and so, here's your points," and that's not me, that's somebody else. An employee has been accumulating points from cash sales.
Oh.
So that person might be utilising those points
Yeah.
that are unfairly gained to purchase discounted stock.
Wow. I remember, and look, and one thing that I do know about fraud, we talk about people in our business and the trusted people, we treat them like family. But all the time we hear of lawyers being disbarred. They're 99.9% of lawyers as honest as the day is long. But humans are humans, and it doesn't restrict on where these people go in whatever trade. And accountants as well. And we've got CPA and the chartered accountants. And again, 99.9% of the people in there are super crispy clean, honest. But my wife's uncle had a building company, and what they used to do is go northward Western Australia here. So they used to work away a lot and do all these transportable homes. And after 10 years, it was a big business. But you can imagine all the supplies coming in.
Definitely.
And then all the money being collected. And the accountant said, as he did, how about, well, next time you go away, just to smooth it over, because you're going to be away for a while this time, and we don't want any problems, do we? How about I get the signature on the account so I can just make sure everything runs smoothly? What they didn't know is when they said yes, he sold his family home, he set up this place overseas somewhere because he's never been found, and I think it was $5 or $6 million later on income they'd earned, he took. But the problem is, also the stock that had come in and been supplied, he didn't pay the bills.
You can get caught. It's not a pleasant place to be.
No.
It's really not a pleasant place to be. And the electronic systems today, if we don't understand the electronic systems, I was reading an article yesterday in the paper where a lady answered her mobile phone, and she answered it normally, "Hi, Amy Rich,"
Yeah.
and the phone hung up. The person on the other end has taken her phone number, gone to the phone service provider and ported across her mobile phone. They'd used her readily found information on Facebook,
Yep.
birth date, address, and they'd taken her personality, her person. So in a matter of 24 hours, she had money taken from her personal bank account.
Yep.
She had those Apple cards,
Yes.
you buy a $100 card.
Yeah.
One of those had been taken, and she had to close down her business cash accounts, her personal cash accounts, and she had wages to pay to her staff.
Wow.
So you really, personal information,
Yeah.
telephones, I mean, it can happen.
How many times do we get rung up? And I know I have, and they say it's such and such from such and normally like a Telstra or the ATO or something like that. And look, we just need to verify it is you. And my answer is, you rang me.
Well,
you must know it's me.
In most cases,
Yeah.
when the phone rings, you'll answer and
Yeah.
give your name,
Yeah.
so they know it's you.
Yeah.
This is what happened to this lady. She said hello
And said her full name.
and said her name,
Wow.
and the phone was hung up. So there are many ways and means
Yeah.
of people taking advantage of us today. It's just a matter of getting us being a little bit more aware and more secure in our information, our processes, our systems, how do we protect ourselves, the
Yeah.
things that we can do. And IT, the area of IT,
Yeah.
it's now, another survey I mentioned is one done recently where they talked about the top 40 things that people are fearful of. I'm not sure whether I mentioned this on the program. And in the top 5, IT related things are in the top 5. They're scared, they're fearful of the new software coming out, the speed of change, and what they do if they hit a wrong button. And believe it or not, fear of death comes out in the low 20s. So we're not so much scared of dying as we are of getting on a computer today.
That's it used to be public speaking. Now it's computers. But if you're in a family business now, because you've consulted with family business for many, many years, what are some of the telltale signs, if we come back to employees or another family member, God forbid, that is actually diddling the books or maybe not making the right or decisions that are correct for our business? How can we start, or what are some of the telltale signs for fraud that's happening to us? What are some of the things you pick up on?
Generally, you have to have really tight processes and procedures. There's nothing wrong with going back and reviewing the processes and procedures that you have in place.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, and probably the majority of cases, business owners aren't aware of the fraud that's happening at that point in time.
Yeah.
So it's generally after the fact, or somebody else that says something or an action happens that we become aware.
Right.
This is why the review process is so important.
Okay. Do you find, because a lot of us, I know I've done my own reviews, and because I think it should be a certain way, my eyes tend to see that it is that way, and I miss the error. And someone said, well, that's because you know it so well, your brain just goes, well, it just automatically thinks, and it will skim over things.
Sometimes there's a change in ownership, sometimes there's a change in relationship, and even if you're used to looking at a series of numbers that says, yeah, well, we're not making as much profit as we were last year. Profits dropped away. We don't really understand why, because it seems or it feels like everything's okay. Until you actually do the processing and check everything. And it can be security cameras to watch front and back door, so that we can check that staff aren't walking in or out.
Absolutely.
So there's different things that we can do.
When you go in and you start a review process and you help people go through that, do you find having eyes like you that you know business and you know family business, but because you don't know their particular business, or you don't know that it should run that way, that when you look at things you question things that they may go, hold on, and alert them to things that they may just be blind to or missing?
I think that's part of having somebody else from the outside come into your business. It's always fresh eyes. I've seen a lot of businesses, and I see how many different ways things can be done. When I talk about cameras, cameras are now reasonably cheap, or I'll say inexpensive. So you can have them set up at front and back door and have it come straight to your iPhone if you want. And a lot of these security cameras will have data recording, so that it'll store up a week or 2 weeks worth of information. I know of people where they'll put a camera at the back door and not worried about the front door. Okay, so why don't you have one at the front door as well? You don't expect somebody's going to come in the front door. Well, I don't know. I don't know. And it's just one of these things where another set of eyes looking at possibilities. Accounting systems, maybe your accounting systems are in great shape. Maybe you keep reviewing them, that yes, you need 2 people to review something, or it needs somebody else's key fobs to let sales transactions or bank wages go through. All of these things now, we need to be sure that the system is fail-safe, and it's not an easy thing to do.
No. I know it was reminding me of when in the old days we used to have the salespeople out on the road in their cars, and and many times you'd drive past and they were parked at the park or in a motel or in a restaurant, and you're going, I'm sure they should be on the road. But now, as you said, systems with iPads, they deliver the iPads to the reps, but the iPads track them. I know
well, the iPads have trackers in them,
yeah.
but you can put trackers in vehicles too.
Yeah.
And here's a question. If you're going to treat everybody in the business the same, then a family member should have a tracker in the family member's car as well.
Oh.
So here we start hitting family buttons. Okay?
Yes.
Why should someone in the family be treated differently to somebody not? If we look at the business as a business,
Yeah.
and everybody gets treated the same and family members have contracts, then the understanding is that security systems will be put in place, and if it's a company vehicle, it will have a tracker in it. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
In fact, I would find that appropriate.
Yes.
A family member, you would not assume you're going to go and do something stupid on a weekend,
Yeah.
go and drive the car off a cliff or something like that. But you don't necessarily want to be tracked everywhere. The fact is, if we carry a mobile phone with us today, we're tracked.
Yes. Yeah, we are. And I know, like in some industries, say like in pest control, because they've got to make sure that the pest control person is actually carrying out the job. Especially I'm talking to some of the big commercial stuff, and they put points around, so they may not track them personally, but as they go through the job, they got to tap each point around the premises. So they actually have to go around. They're coming up with ways to make sure that fraud doesn't just have to be stealing physical money off us. Time. I mean, it's a big one, isn't it?
Very much.
Yeah.
And that's not saying we want families in business to be cracking knuckles of people that don't take account of every minute of every day. The familyness of family business means we understand that people are going to work around 80, 85, 90% effectiveness and efficiency. And to be pushed at really, really over 100% for a long period of time is going to burn people out.
Yeah.
So we're people, we're human beings, we need to have a bit of give and take in this. So long as the contract says this is what you're paid to do, and we accept that this is the work that you're going to do for that pay, then the arrangement works, and the same goes for family members.
It reminds me, we did another show on this, and you were talking about one of the values in a family business, talking time then, and one person was getting all upset because people don't arrive on time, they don't arrive early, but their attitude was, well, we're a family business, we pay you to get this done. As long as that's done, we're happy.
Correct.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
And the values of that family generally come through to those family members. The values are shown, are exposed to others in the way the culture of the business will operate. So it's a showcasing, really.
So if you're a family that's in business now, and that adds a level of complexity, as you said, or even its emotional complexity, where do you start? You may be sitting there and say, well, we don't think we've had any fraud, or maybe we're a little bit suspicious, or they're not too sure. Where do people start? Someone who hasn't done any checks and balances, maybe they're rolling along and they go, maybe we should. What are some of the things you would advise them to start doing?
Review a process. If you've got one person that looks after the books and the accounts and they're a trusted advisor and works in the business, or a trusted employee, and if everything's happened fine for years and years, maybe there's nothing to look for. But at the same time, why don't you review the processes and procedures in your business? It's a way of actually looking to see where we can actually save a bit of time today, or become more efficient, or review the software package that we're using.
Yeah.
Is there something that's more appropriate today that will be less time consuming or more user friendly?
Yeah.
So it could be an upgrade, an opportunity to improve the professionalizing, the professionalism of your business.
So reviewing processes is probably a good starting point.
Definitely.
Now, I suppose the elephant in the room is we review our process and we find fraud. Now, you said KPMG reports X amount of people, or X amount of people, but there's a huge bundle that don't. I suppose the first question is, why do you think family businesses in particular tend not to report fraud that they find and try and deal with it internally?
I think, personal opinion, I think it's too hard, because my understanding of the process here in Australia is that fraud has to be proven. So once we find it, if it's only a small amount of money or a small amount of time, people will say, okay, we don't want you here anymore, please leave. Yeah. And they wear the cost of that little situation.
Yeah.
If it's a little bit larger or a lot larger, some people tend not to go through the process, not that they don't want the person gone, so the person will exit the business, but the reason it doesn't go any further is because the police don't do all the work. Somebody has to track down all of the information, correlate that information, document the information, take it to the police, and then the police can prosecute.
Right.
It's not the police's job to go and accumulate all of the information, and that's time consuming and it's stressful, and a lot of people don't want to go down that path.
And I suppose, as you said, going down that path then creates a big expense or imposition on a family business, because tracking that stuff down and documenting it in a way that the police will accept it as well, because they're certainly not just going to take your handwritten notes.
No,
you're going to have
it's proof.
Yeah,
you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law.
And that, as we know, can be a little bit tricky sometimes.
I think we've all watched a few TV shows about proof in courts of law.
Yes.
So yes, it's a very difficult thing for people to come to grips with the fact that they've been defrauded.
Yeah.
So there's an emotional effect on that. Not only to you as an individual, but to a family. They can all feel that they've taken a share of that.
Yeah.
And it can be that the person or people involved, you don't know where they're connected.
Yeah.
There can be threats, there can be all sorts of ramifications. So we don't know. There's so much unknown about this area.
Yes.
In my mind, I've come across it a number of times, but I haven't been to the extent where I've had to prepare documentation for the police or lawyers.
So it's not really a case of the family taking the soft option or the easy out. It's really, they're basing it on quite sound commercial decisions.
Sometimes there's a commercial decision, and sometimes there's heavy emotional decision in that too.
Yeah, it's a combination of
combination. And sometimes it's more emotional. We let it go.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. It's gone. We make sure it doesn't happen again. We move on.
Yeah. So someone's watching. Maybe they found that fraud and they're stuck and they don't know which way they should go. Would you advise them to speak to? The police is difficult because you said the police just say, "Bring me the proof." Are there people they can actually speak to, or you'd say, look, why don't you talk to such and such? Maybe someone like yourself, or maybe an accountant. What would you suggest?
Sometimes, if you feel that there's documentation, forensic accountants can come in. If you feel there's a particular situation, there are particular legal firms and lawyers that will look at this kind of work to support a family or a business. There is value in talking to the police.
All right.
I personally believe there's value in talking to the police. They can give you the directions of the processes to go through.
Okay.
They can't do it for you, but they will tell you how to go.
Right.
And then you get to choose your own professionals. That's my understanding.
That's your understanding. Yeah, and I'd be pretty much on the same. I didn't think about the police would actually give you some directions, but I suppose they will. Because they don't like that sort of stuff either going on.
No, they don't. Well, we have a law, and they're the upholders of the law. They're the people that look after us.
Yeah. And for the firms now, that are, say, have no fraud, but are going, we need some, maybe they don't know how to check their systems properly. Maybe we've been in business for 20, 30 years as a family business, and we kind of go, but it's always been this way. Is there a different way? Because unless we've seen it or experienced it, we kind of don't know. Do you show people that when you consult with them?
I have, if I'm invited to come and review for families who are in business, I try and give them alternative perspectives. If there's an opportunity to review things, we can go through the reviews. We can look at alternate business models. Sometimes the business model may be a little bit old or stale. Could do with a revamp. But there are a number of businesses out there that really have great processes and great procedures. They've been progressive in professionalising their own businesses. So they've been moving with the times.
Yeah. So, great talking to you. Someone who goes, you know what, I should give John a call. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is what I love about Zoom and Skype and all these things. You can talk to anyone no matter where they are for a bit of a chat and advice. But what's the best way of contacting you, John?
My mobile number is 0433 131 070, and you can send me an email, john@johnbroons.com, and you can hop on my website, have a look around, johnbroons.com. Some businesses, they're growing and we need to change job descriptions, we need to change the org chart in the business and who does what. But who does what also can change what's happening and where the paper trail will go and who's responsible for the invoicing and who's responsible for the logistics and the warehouse and all of that sort of stuff. And in those cases, I like to just get sticky notes and a blank wall and start at the beginning, and then we put sticky notes up. And who touches it where, and who touches it where, and then who touches it there. And then if we need to change the process, we can put an extra sticky note in or a different colour sticky note. Right? That's a really simple way of doing it.
So it's a real visualization when you're looking.
It's tracking the process.
It's tracking the process.
Yeah. How many people have? You have a process here of everything you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kathy has a process of how she puts people in the diary. Kathy has a process of how she does the invoicing and when she does the invoicing. All you have to do is write down when it happens, because otherwise, how's Kathy going to have a holiday? Somebody else has to do it.
But she's my wife, she don't get holidays.
Exactly. So
no, but good point.
I'm just giving you a for instance. Okay. So here, this business now has 5 employees.
Yes.
You're sitting out there just counting the money. Okay. Who's going to be doing what buttons get pressed? Checking that the sound's on.
Yeah.
Checking that the camera's doing this and this. People expect, you know it, you do it, matter of fact. But if you're not here and I come in and I'm here expecting and I've only got my hour, right? Who's going to do this?
So
and how would they know what button to press when? It's a process. Everything you've got here is a process. It's operating within the business system. And you have a series of processes. One is the filming, one is the digital work and the uploading. It's a different process. It's not this, different process. Your skills will cover this and that and that. And your skills may cover Kathy's work.
Yeah.
So you can cover for her.
Yeah.
But you might forget something if it's not all documented in a system process.
So a great way of just making sure things are flowing, give you the confidence that yes, my business is sound, is to get a big blank wall and start mapping a process.
There's one guy, you know how you used to be able to go, you still can go down and buy a big roll of brown paper.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be about this big, right? And that's what we used to wrap presents in.
Yes.
As kids. Okay. get one of those big rounds. This particular guy I know, he used to get this big roll it out on the floor, and then slip it. And he'd have this big sheet of paper across the floor, and then he'd start writing the process on the brown piece of paper.
Wow.
And then if he didn't finish that afternoon, he'd fold it up, put it in his cupboard, or he'd take it home with him. And then he'd unfold it again, and there it is on the big piece of paper. And then he'd do the process in a piece of paper, then he'd write step by step by step by step. Once he got it clear on the roll of paper, I'm just putting it on a
big board.
So it's there. Yeah, there's different ways of doing exactly the same thing.
And I suppose when you do that in a visual sense, you yourself then can start to see checks and balances where you would go, what happens if something happens? How would I check that was actually done?
Yeah.
A bit like when you do health and safety. So someone says, well, we've got to write a safety procedure for the forklift, for instance. And you can, once you map it out, you can kind of quickly pick, as health and safety people will tell you, speed is the big killer. You knock the speed out, and you've knocked out 90% of the accidents.
Yeah.
And I suppose when you look at a process, you can pick, if that's our critical area, it starts to get really crystal clear, or that's our danger point, and that's what we can put.
In 1997,
Yeah.
I was hired by KPMG to write the Processes and Procedures Manual for their Management Consulting Division.
Wow.
Okay. And I got 90% of the document done, and there was one part that I hadn't been able to get into. It took me about 3 or 4 weeks to get permission to go and visit the induction process.
Wow.
The induction process took a day. And I'm thinking, why would the induction process take a day? And after I spent about half an hour in there, I got up and walked away. When I'm going to work in a new business, I want to know what the values are. I want to know what the vision is. I want to know where I fit in the scheme of things. I want to know how to communicate with the other partners and the staff and the people. I want to know where they are, what's the footprint, how we treat our customers. I want to know this stuff. Do you know what they did in the reduction process? This is how you plug in your computer. This is how you set up your telephone at your desk. And I'm going, are you for real? This is called induction? It's got nothing to do with induction.
And
that's what they were doing, and they called it induction.
What I love about that is you've just made a huge point I think is really critical for people, is that if you can do a proper induction like you just went through those steps, an induction, people get embodied that into your culture, and that has got to lower the risk of fraud rather than just...
OH&S, I was talking with somebody yesterday, I had the forum group of FBO, one of the groups, and we were talking about an induction document. And different companies will have, these days you've got to have people sign off that they know the rules when they join the business.
Yes.
Right? And I know back in the 90s, in the 80s, I grabbed Orica. Do you know of Orica?
Yes.
Yeah. They used to make explosives. I don't know whether they still do. But I grabbed their induction manual. It was a pocket-sized thing, this high, right? And I just transcribed it and made it for our timber business. I changed the names, and because it was pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
But it set aside a whole series of rules of what you can do and what you can't do as an employee of the business. And people have to sign off they received that. Now, that's a process in itself. Just the fact that you've signed off that you've received it and read it.
Yes.
Okay. These days, how often do you read the disclaimer on the front of an Apple download?
Oh no.
Right? Skip to agree, give it to me, right?
Yeah.
We've done the process. Have we actually gone through and learned from that process?
Yeah.
No. We're trusting.
Or we're lazy and can't. I mean, it's written so small, there's so much of it.
But that's our society today.
Certainly is. John, absolutely fascinating talking to you. It's been fantastic.
Goodbye.